Hey everyone, this is Matt from End Sickness. I'm going to teach you how to beat oxalate intolerance today. I'm going to talk about how it develops, how it originates from too many animal products in ratio to fiber, how mycotoxin sensitivity is often part of it. I'm going to talk about the lack of diverse fiber being the actual origin, the cause, because as I'll go into, you don't have enough of the good guys to break down the oxalates. Talk about stress on the kidneys. Kidneys are the things that are responsible for moving the oxalates out of your body, filtering them. So whenever there's problems with oxalates, there's stress on the kidneys, and as I'll talk about, that's excess protein, undigested protein. Talk about too many synthetic supplements. People are often taking 15 supplements at a time, wondering why they have oxalate intolerance when their kidneys are stressed from so many supplements, And I'll talk about how to beat oxalate intolerance at the end. So first, how it develops. So what happens is people typically have diets where they consume way too many animal products for a long period of time, and then often they're exposed to mold, or they're exposed to mycotoxins, or they have some significant exposure at some point in their life, and they continue this high protein diet, not realizing that they can't break down the proteins now because they're involved in a mycotoxin exposure in their house, and they start having reactions to food, reactions to all these things, thinking that it's the oxalates, it's the food, the salicylates, it's all these different things, but in fact it's actually the mycotoxins in their house that are causing them to react to everything. And then they continue to eat too many animal products. These don't get broken down, and the kidneys get overloaded, and they stop filtering out these oxalates. When that happens, then your body starts to get overwhelmed with oxalates, and then anything with oxalates in it, they could start having reactions to. This could be thing. I mean, I had reactions to everything except for 5 different foods at one point in time. I was reacting to everything, so I know exactly what it's like to be in this situation. I work with clients nearly every day that have sensitivities with salicylates or oxalates and help them get out of that situation. But so number 2 point I'm going to talk about is too many animal products. Okay, if we eat too many animal products, we don't have enough good bacteria then to break down the oxalates in our stomach, right? So good bacteria thrive off of fiber and glucose, carbohydrates. Animal products feed autoimmune bacteria, the type of bacteria that you don't want to have grow at a fast pace in your body. Too many animal products is the number one mistake that people make. Say, well, what can I eat? I'm reacting to everything except for meat. That's not true. If you go to the few vegetables, as I'll talk about, the few vegetables, fruits, potatoes, rice, those things that work for you, build off of those. Then what I do is I help people get out of a diet where they're eating 4 different things. Eventually they're up to eating 25 different things within a matter of months, And it's all from eliminating the emphasis on the animal products, as the animal products are compromising the kidneys. They're aggravating the immune system. They're not being digested fully. The fats, the proteins are the hardest thing to break down. So you got to go ahead and cut back or possibly eliminate the animal products entirely. I've seen people who are getting burning down their legs and extreme disabling pain and symptoms neurologically from eating oxalates and salicylates. But once they got rid of the protein in the form of animal products, they got rid of it. What happened? Within 45 days, 60 days, that was gone. Now they're eating they're eating plants with no issues, right? So mycotoxin sensitivity. When people have exposure to mycotoxins, they are unable to break down certain proteins and fats as well as they could because it compromises their enzyme production, compromises their digestive system, compromises their whole body. So the first thing to go when you have a over-inflamed gut or an over-exaggerated immune response is your protein digestion. And people have exposures to mold, and then they continue eating too much protein, not enough fiber, not enough plants. Their immune system eventually gets more and more reactive to everything, and this is what turns into this oxalate sensitivity, like I said. So a lack of diverse fiber. You need different fibers to feed good bacteria, different groups of good bacteria in your body, which will produce short-chain fatty acids, different byproducts that will help calm the immune system down. That will go ahead and not only assist the immune system calm down so it doesn't react to things like oxalates, but it will also go ahead and help your detox system operate better when you got more fiber, more of these fermentation byproducts from healthy fibers, and then you'll be better off with oxalate intolerance. So I will talk about a plan in the end. Hold on, here we go. Stress on the kidneys. As I said, if you're taking too many supplements, you're eating too much protein, you're not having enough fiber, you're not drinking enough water, you're not getting enough exercise. These things all put stress on the kidneys, which end up causing issues with people who have oxalate sensitivity. All of them have kidney stress. You got to take the stress off the kidneys so the kidneys can start to filter out the acids properly, and that is necessary. You take away the high protein diet, all the things I talked about, and I'll emphasize in the plan at the end. So stress on the kidneys is always part of this oxalate intolerance. Too many synthetic supplements. People are taking 15 supplements, and they're wondering why they have oxalate sensitivity. They're thinking the problem is in fact sweet potato, where they took a B vitamin that had 12 ingredients in it and this, that, and the other, and it's madness. It's madness, you know. Too many synthetic supplements put stress on the kidneys. Once again, the kidneys are the ones who are responsible for breaking down the oxalates, getting rid of the oxalates. I'm sorry, processing the oxalates. And the synthetic supplements, they also alter the gut microbiome, you know. And you need a good gut to be able to get rid of these oxalates. Your only two mechanisms are through the kidneys or through the bacteria to break them down and get rid of them. So how to beat oxalate intolerance? I'll tell you very simply. You go to all the foods that aren't oxalates or that are low oxalates, and you focus on just those that are all plants. You know, you could start with whatever you'd like, but I tell people simply, fruits, vegetables, rice, beans, potatoes, stick with that and focus on the foods that work for you first. You stick with that 30, 45 days. You give yourselves a couple different oils, whether olive oil, avocado oil, grapeseed oil, something if you really need to. You just focus on the real basics, bland food. You just simplify it. You go with only those foods. You don't want to eat, 15 ingredients at your meal or have a sushi burrito or something or whatever. I mean, whatever you're going to have. But you want to keep it really simple, and keep it just to those basic plants and stick with it for 45 days or so. Once all of a sudden your body is going to start reacting better to these things, and eventually within 45, 60 days, you'll be rid of this issue where you aren't tolerating plants, and now your whole diet will open up, because now you can tolerate 20 different plants, and now you can add animal products back in as you want to, but you got to be able to remind yourself that you're not going to be breaking those things down to address this mycotoxin issue. And mycotoxins, if you're in a house, you're having a chronic response to a mycotoxin, you're going to have a difficult time breaking down these proteins. So, and animal products. So the point is, if you have oxalate intolerance, you got to get away from the proteins. You got to get out of the environment that's triggering you. These are the two main things, and you got to focus on higher fiber, plant-based foods. And this is going to be the solution to get out of the situation. I've seen this with numerous people, and I've experienced it myself. Oxalates are not the enemy. The enemy, in fact, is the kidney stress, the excess protein, and the overemphasis of animal products and animal fat in general versus fiber and carbohydrates. And you have to think about the long-term picture when you're trying to go through something like this. Most people I work with have mast cell activation, and they're reacting to everything, right? I mean, they're not reacting to everything, and I help them get past that to a point where they're living normal lives through going ahead and focusing on eating plants, starting there with the basics, the simplicity, having 5 ingredients or less in a meal, eating these key fruits, vegetables, potatoes, rice, beans, emphasizing those. Once they get stable and they're not reacting, then we start talking about supplements. Then after that, we start talking about the deep breathing, the limbic system retraining. I mean, I'm talking about real healing, not healing with just another pill, I got options that are all plant-based, they're all natural, and that's how I approach things. It makes it completely different versus everybody else that's doing this. So reach out to me if you have questions, if you're struggling with oxalate intolerance, or if you have histamine issues or mast cell issues. This is what I focus on, and I thank you for watching. Subscribe if you like the information.